Chapter 1. When I was born, the name that I was did not exist. They called me Nymph, assuming I would be like my mother and aunts and 1,000 cousins. Least of the lesser goddesses, powers were so modest, I guess to ensure our entities. We spoke to fish and flowers, coaxed drops from the clouds, or salt from the waves. That word, nymph, paced out the length and breadth of our futures. In our language, it means not just goddess, but pride. Bride. My mother was one of them, a nun, guardian of fountains and streams. Caught my father's eye when he came to visit. Oceano's palace was a great wonder, set deep in the earth's rock. Its high arched halls were gilded, stone floors smoothed by his divine feet. Through every room, the faint sound of Oceano's river, source of the world's fresh water, so dark, you could tell what had ended and the red began. On its banks, grass and soft grey flowers, and also the unknown children of Oceanos, naiads and nymphs and gods, art bleak, laughing, their faces bright against the dusky air. They passed golden goblets among themselves and wrestled, games of love. In their midst, outshining all that little beauty, sat my mother. Her hair was a warm brown, its so lustrous it seemed lit thin. I felt my father's gaze, hot gusts from the bonfire. She arranged her dress so it drapes over her shoulders. I see her dab her fingers, glint in the water. I've seen 1,000 such tricks, 1,000 times. My father always fell for them. He believed the world's order was to please him. "Who is that?" father said to Oceanus. Oceanus had many golden-eyed grandchildren and fathers already. I was glad to think of more. "My daughter Percy. She is yours if you want her." The next day, my father found by her fountain in the upper world. It was a beautiful place, with fat-headed narcissus, woven over with oak branches. There was no muck, no slimy frogs, clean, round stones giving way to grass. Even my father, who cared nothing for the subtlety of lymph arts, admired it. My mother knew he was coming. Frail she was, but crafty, with a mind like a spike-toothed eel. She saw where the path to power lay for such as her, and it was not fast as the riverbank tumbled. When he stood before her, arranged in his glory, she laughed at him. "Lie with you? Why should I?" My father, of course, might have taken what he wanted, but Helios flattered himself that all women went eager to his slave girls and divinities alike. His orders smoked with proof, offering from big-bellied mothers and happy by blows. "It is marriage," she said to him, "or nothing. And if it is marriage, you may have what girls like in the field, but you will be gone home, for only I will sway in your halls." Conditions, constrainment. These were novelty to my father, and gods love nothing more than novelty. "A bargain," he said, and gave her a knife to seal it, one of his own making, strung with beads of rarest amber. Later, born, he gave her a second strand, another for each of my 3 siblings. I do not know which treasured more, the youth's beads themselves, or the envy of her sisters when she wore them. I think she had gone right on collecting them into eternity until they hung from her neck like a yoke on an ox if the high god had stopped her. By then, they had learned what the 4 of us were. "You may have children," they told her, "only not with him." Husbands did not give amber beads. It was the only time I ever saw her weep. My birth and aunt, I will spare you her name because my tale is full of aunts, washed and wrapped me. Another tended to my mother, painting the red back on her lips, brushing her hair with ivory combs. A third went to the door to admit my father. A girl, my mother said to him, wrinkling her lips. My father did not mind his daughter tempered and golden first press of olives. Men and gods paid dearly for the chance to breed from blood, and my father's treasury was said to rival that of the king of the gods himself. He placed his hand on my head in blessing. She will make a fair match, he said. How fair? My mother wanted to know. This might be consolation if I could be traded for something. My father considered, fingering wisps of my hair, examining my eyes and the cut to my cheeks. A prince, I think. A prince, my mother said. You do not mean a mortal. The revulsion was plain on her face. Once when I was young, I asked what mortals look like. My father said, You may say they are shaped like us, but only on the worm, as the worm is shaped like a whale. My mother had been simpler, like savage bags of rotten flesh. Surely she will marry a son of Zeus, my mother insisted. She had already begun imagining herself at feast upon Olympus, sitting at Queen Hera's right hand. No, her hair is streaked like a lynx, and at chin there is sharpness to it that is less than pleasing. My mother did not argue further. Like everyone, she knew the stories of Helios' temper when he was crossed. Gold he shines, do not forget his fire. Her belly was down, her waist re-knitted, her cheeks fresh with virgin rose. All are kind recover quickly, but she was faster still, one of the daughters of Oceanos who shoot their babies like roe. Come, she said, let us make a better one. I grew quickly. My infancy was the work of hours, my toddlerhood a few moments beyond that. I once stayed on hoping to curry favour with my mother and named me Circe, yellow eyes, and a strange thin sound of my crying. But when she realized that my mother was no more noticed her service than the ground at her feet, she vanished. Mother, I said, aunt is gone. My mother didn't answer. My mother had already departed for his chariot in the sky, and she was winding her hair with flowers, preparing to leave through the secret ways of water to join her sisters on the grassy riverbanks. I might have followed, but then I would have had to sit all day at my aunt's feet while they gossiped of things I did not care for and could not understand. So I stayed. My father's walls were dark and silent. His palace was a neighbour to Oceanos, buried in the rock, and its walls were made of polished obsidian. Why not? They could have anything in the world. Blood-red marble from Egypt, of balsam from Araby. My father had only wished so. He liked the way the obsidian reflected light, the way it slicked surfaces, caught fire as he passed. Of course, he did not consider how black it would be when he was gone. My father had been able to imagine the world without himself in it. I could do what I liked at those times. Light a torch and run to see the dark flames for me. Lie on the smooth earth floor and wear small holes in the surface with my fingers. There were no grubs or worms, though I didn't know to miss them. Nothing lived in those holes, except for us. When my father returned at night, the ground rippled like the flank of a horse, and the holes I had made smoothed themselves over. A moment later, my mother returned smelling of flowers. She ran to greet him. He let her hang from his neck, extracting wine, went to his great silver chair. I followed at his heels. "Welcome home, father, welcome home." While he drank his wine, he played draughts. No one was allowed to play with him. He placed the stone counter, spun the board, and played them again. My mother drenched her voice in honey. "Will you not come to bed, my love?" She turned before him slowly, showing the lushness of her figure as if she were roasting on a spit. Most often, he would leave his game then, but sometimes he did not, and those were my favourite times, for my mother would go, slamming the myrrh wood door behind her. At my father's feet, the world was made of gold. Light came from everywhere at once. His yellow skin, his lambent eyes, the bronze flashing of his hair. His flesh was easier, and I pressed as close as he would let me, like a lizard to noonday rocks. My aunt said that some of the lesser gods would scarcely bear to look at him. But I was his daughter in blood, and I stared at his face so long that when I looked away it was fixed upon my vision still, glowing from the floors, the shining walls and inlaid tables, even my own skin. "What would happen," I said, "if a mortal saw you in your fullest glory?" "He would be burnt to ash in a second." "What if a mortal saw me?" Father smiled. Listen to the draught was moving. The familiar rasp of marble against wood. The mortal would count himself well fortunate. "I would not burn him." "Of course not," he said. "But my eyes are like yours." "No," he said. "Look." His gaze fell upon a log at the fireplace's side. It glowed, then flamed, then fell as ash to the ground. "And that is the least of my power. Can you do as much?" All night I stared at those logs. I could not. My sister was born, and my brother soon after that. I cannot say how long it was exactly. Divine days fall like water from a cataract, and I had not learned yet the mortal trick of counting them. You'd think my father taught us better, for he, after all, knows every sunrise. But even he used to call my brother and sister twins. Certainly, from my moment of my brother's birth, they were entwined like minks. My father blessed them both with one hand. "You," he said to my luminous sister, passively, "you will marry an eternal son of Zeus." He used his prophetic voice, the one that spoke of future certainties. My mother glowed to hear it, thinking of the robes she would wear to Zeus' feasts. "As for you," he said to my mother in his regular voice, resonant, clear as a summer's morning, "every son reflects upon his mother." My mother was pleased with this, and took permission to name him. She called him Perses, or herself. The two were clever and quickly saw how things stood. They loved to sneer at me behind their ermine brows. Her eyes are yellow as piss, her voice as screechy as an owl. She is called Hawk, but she would be called Goat for ugliness. Those were their earliest attempts at barb, still dull, but day by day they sharpened. I learned to avoid them, and they soon found better sport among the naiads and river lords in Piano's halls. When my mother went to her sisters, they followed and established dominion over her pliant cousin, minnows before the pike. 100 tormenting games that they devised. "Come, Melia," coaxed. "It is Olympian fashion to cut off your hair to the nape of your neck. How will you ever catch a husband if you don't do it?" When Malia saw herself shorn like a hedgehog and cried, it would laugh till the caverns echoed. I listened to it.